What if I told you there's a sports betting strategy that feels like you're cheating? Imagine a strategy where the longer you play it, the bigger the edge you end up having. Well, that's what I'm going to show you guys in this video. I'm going to show you guys the exact sports betting strategy that long term produces results that compound day after day, week after week, and month after month. Now, first I want to give you guys an example. I'm going to draw 10 boxes. We're going to say that there are 10 boxes sitting on a table, and what you have to do is you have to choose which box has something in it, all right? Let's say, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There is 9 boxes that have something in it. You have to pick a box that has something in it. How simple does that seem, right? So, mathematically, let's do the math behind this. This is a 90% chance that you're going to pick a box that has something in it. Sounds great, right? Sounds like a great deal. Now, imagine this. Imagine if the person that has these boxes on the table says to you, if you take $100 and put $100 down and you choose a box that has something in it, I'm going to give you 20 bucks. If you choose the box that has nothing in it, well then you're going to lose that $100. Would you take that deal? Now, most people would think, well, $100 I'm going to wager to make $20 doesn't seem worth it, right? Doesn't seem exactly worth the money because I'm putting up a lot to just get a little bit back. But the odds of you picking a box that has something in it is 90%, okay? 90%. That's huge. 9 out of 10 times you are going to pick a box that has something in it. So let's run that over a course of 10 times of you doing that, okay? So we're gonna say 10 times you're able to do this, okay? One time you picked the box that didn't have anything in it, okay? So you lost $100 one time out of that. Now what we have to do is we have to go ahead and do the math here, okay? We lost one time, okay? So we lost $100 one time, but now we got 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 20, 40, 60, 80. We won $180, right? But we chose the wrong box one time. But we made what? Dollars. We made a profit of $80 being able to do this. Why? Because the price of what that person is giving you for $100 down to make $20 is actually an implied probability of 80%, which means what? We have an edge of 10% the longer we do this, okay? The longer we do this, we have a plus 10% edge. So if you sit down and you consecutively do this over 1,000 times, 10,000 times, your edge just continuously produces more and more money because the longer you do it, the more money you make, okay? There's no reason for somebody to sit there and say, no, I'm not going to do this, because long term, you are just going to print money. So it feels like cheating. Now this, all you have to do is this analogy that I showed you here is take this and adapt it to sports betting. It's literally that simple. You take this analogy and you flip it to sports betting. You find plays that have a 90% chance of winning, but are priced at 80%. It's that simple, and I'm gonna show you guys a couple examples here going forward. But before we get to that, I'm gonna show you guys one more analogy here to make you understand what the general public would do in a scenario, and most actually do, and 90% of them actually do. Now, let's go right back to the box analogy here, because now, here's an example of a real life scenario with a sports bettor where 90% of the people will fall for this and want to do this, but you're going to see exactly why this ain't the best option. Let's say one box has something in it, but the person that runs this table says you put down $100 and you find the box that has something in it, I'm going to give you $800 in return. Now that sounds flashy, right? That sounds like, wow, I put down $100. If I pick the right box, I'm going to get $800 back. But now let's go ahead and run that same exact math here with this analogy. So let's go 10 times here, okay? We're gonna say what? We lose 9 times and we end up winning actually 1 time, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so we ended up we found it 1 time, right? We made $800 on that 1 time that we found it. But we lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We lost $900. So what did we get there? Negative $100 every time we did that, okay? The payout, right? Looks flashy. Looks cool. $100 down, I can make $800 if I pick the right box. But we're losing $100 every single time we do this. Now, you want to know why? Because our implied probability is 10% that we're going to choose a box that has something in it. Our true probability of us to find something with a box with something in it is 10%. As our implied probability now is 11%. A little bit over 11% at that number. So what does that mean? We have a negative 1% edge. That little percent, minus 1%, costs us $100 every time we do this long term. So multiply that over 1,000, over 10,000 times, and what are you doing? You're consistently compounding your losses and you're losing money. This is what most sports bettors do. They want to go out there because they see a small amount of money to turn into a big amount of money, and what do? They think, I'm going to go for that because putting down $100 and I make 800 back, like that sounds great. That sounds way better than putting down $100 and getting $20 back, right? Sounds appetizing. But when you actually look at the math behind it, it's a terrible decision. And long term, you're going to consistently lose. So again, all you do is take this and you translate this to sports betting. This analogy that I showed you, both analogies, let's translate that to sports betting. So that way you can see exactly how this works and where you've been going wrong this whole entire time. So now let's go ahead and put this in a real life scenario when it comes to sports betting. Okay, let's use a football play for example here. Let's go ahead and let's say Joe Burrow. We're going to look at Joe Burrow's passing yards on any given Sunday. Let's go ahead and say, for example, if we look at his passing yards, the normal line that they have out is, let's say 280. And you got to pick whether it goes over or under. Now, if we go and take a look at both ways here, let's say, for example, how many times has he went over 280 yards in the prior season? Let's just say, we're going to use for example here, okay? We're not going to use actual true numbers. We're going to use hypothetical numbers here. But let's say he went over this number 45% of the time. Now, if we're looking at the over here, what does that mean? Because if this is what the regular line is at, that means we have an implied probability of 52%, but we have a true probability of 45. We got a negative 70% edge here, okay? Now, I know some people would say, if that's the case, why wouldn't we just take the other side and take the under here because it'd be at what, 55%, right? You could, but that's not the only thing that needs to match up, okay? So for you to take an under, for example, on this side, he would also have to have a matchup against a defense that doesn't give up a lot of passing yards. This is a key point that a lot of people miss when they're finding their true probability. Yes, the numbers might match up and you might have an edge, but the matchup needs to be consistent. The numbers might be correct and you might actually have an edge, but you also need the matchup to align as well. So if he's playing against a team that gives up 300 passing yards a game, even though the edge lies on the under here, doesn't mean you could play the under. Okay, you got to have the formula of everything to line up here. Okay, so let's say he is playing a team that only gives up 20 passing yards a game and they're very good in the secondary. If that's the case, then if you flip it here and we go a 55% chance for the under, where we have an implied probability of, yes, we have a plus 3% edge here. So yes, that would essentially work with the right matchup. But the crazy thing is, you don't find the biggest edge when you're looking at the typical lines that the sportsbook gives you. Where you find the best edge is actually where you move the lines. So let's go ahead and say, for example, we move this line, all right? We move this all the way back to 200 plus passing yards. Now, if we take a look at his stats on that, let's say he's went over 200 passing yards 90% of the time in the season. But let's go ahead and say that the odds for this are minus 400, which is an implied probability of 80%. Now, this goes back to our example with the boxes pretty much. What happens here? His true probability is 90%. Implied is you have a 10% gap here, a 10% edge. So the thing is, even though at this price, yes, the odds are lower, our edge is smaller. When we paid a little bit more, our edge is higher and our probability is higher, and we're going to win more often. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean making more money long term, but there is things that come into play when you play higher probability plays that have a higher edge and a higher overall probability. It's the mental game, and that is actually what is the biggest, most important part of this sports betting strategy. Because the mental game is what keeps you straight and keeps you consistent with doing this time and time again. Now let me explain to you exactly why. Now before we go ahead and get into the mental game, because it is one of the most important parts of the actual game of sports betting. If you're wondering how to come up with these exact plays that give you the highest probability and give you an actual positive edge so you could win consistently and it feels like cheating when it comes to sports betting, make sure you guys click the link in the description to start your trial with the Linemaker AI. So that way you don't waste hours upon hours trying to figure out which sports bets that you need to place or how to find the edge. Where literally you could type it in, give me the 90% probability plays that have the highest edge, and I'll spit it out in seconds. Click the link in the description so that way you guys can start your trial with that and you don't have to waste hours among hours doing research. So now I want to talk about the mentality here, the mental game behind this. Because here's two different mentalities that work the same way when you both have an edge. But there's a different thing here, okay? So the edge that I showed you guys, for example, let's go ahead and say that minus play. Okay, let's say we did that consistently at 50, where the implied probability was 52%. That gave us what? Plus 3% edge. But let's take a look at the other example here at 400, where implied was 80%, true probability was 90, 10% edge. So here's the difference here. Not just the percentage, but the real difference is the mentality here when you're doing this long term. So the biggest weak point with sports bettor is when they lose. When they lose, they snowball. They don't really know what to do. They start chasing bets. They start betting stuff they don't need to bet. And that's because it's natural. When you lose, something in the brain ticks to where it's like, I need to get that money back. I need to get back quick. When you're playing this type of bet right here, you're going to lose. If you play 55% of the time and you win 55% of the time, you're going to lose 45% of the time. And that 45% of the time when you lose can trigger this right here, your mental state to go haywire. Reason why is because people can't stand to lose. Doesn't matter if they think that they have an edge long term. You lose one time and it could snowball everything. You lose, 4 out of 10 bets because, like I said, that's at the low end. That's 40% over 10 bets if you're hitting 60%. You lose 4 bets. Who knows how you react off of those 4 losses? Because you don't see the long-term goal and the long-term edge there. As in, for example, let's go here. Pretty much profit margin, nearly the same long-term. A little bit better here, actually. But the mental game, imagine winning 9 out of every 10 bets that you place. The mental game, completely different. You feel like you're winning nonstop. You always feel like you're winning. Because why? You actually are. If you're winning 90% of the time, you're winning 9 out of every 10 bets. You're winning 90 out of every 100 bets. You're winning 900 out of every 1,000 bets. You're not experiencing the loss factor. Okay? The loss factor is what I like to say kills sports bettors because they can't handle the loss. And that's the part of the mental game. When they can't handle losing, it triggers them to just go haywire and go off the path. And they're not consistent anymore. They do a bunch of stuff they don't need to be doing. As in, when you are playing higher probability plays, you don't get the feeling of losing that often. So when it comes, it's not that big of a deal. Because you're like, oh, I'm going to probably win 10 in a row after this. Exactly the reason why I would always stick to this type of betting rather than this one. Because I'm just being honest with you. People will not be able to see this through long term. They will fall off the wagon when they lose a couple in a row, and they will disappear, and they will have to try to start all over again, and it's just a wheel. It just keeps going and doing the same exact thing over and over. As for this strategy right here, when you play high probability plays that actually have an edge, long term for the mental game, it's healthy because you feel like a winner and you feel like you're always winning and you don't feel that loser feeling rarely. I mean, you rarely feel that feeling. And when you do, you know it's followed by a lot of wins after that. So it just makes you feel better overall and keeps you consistent and on the right path. And to be honest with you too, when you're around all your friends and all they see is you winning all the time, they're going to ask, what is this guy doing? So it's pretty cool to be around your friends because when you're winning all the time and they're trying to chase that rabbit, and guess what? They're losing consistently. They're going to look at you for advice and they're going to figure out, wow, this guy actually knows what he's doing. So if you follow the strategy that I taught you here today, I promise you, you're going to be that one person in your friend group that everybody is looking at saying, how does this guy just keep winning? It seems like he knows exactly what's going to happen every time it happens. And it's not that you can tell the future. It's just math. It's probabilities. That's really all it is. Probabilities are always going to be probabilities. Remember that. You just have to find the right ones that give you a mispriced edge at the sportsbook. Once you find those, you consistently hammer those long term, and you're going to make money. It's that simple. People make it way too hard. But the reason why they make it hard is because they're trying to chase something that they're never going to get. They're trying to chase either even money bets or parlays, like for the example that I showed you, where you put down $100, win $800, and you're fighting a negative edge. So what are you doing there? You are literally fighting an uphill battle the whole entire time. How does it feel to flip that and actually be running downhill the whole time and not get tired? That's where the money's at. That's how you play smart. That's how you go from gambling to actually investing, and you actually make money long term with sports betting. As always, I'm Frank with Linemaker Sports. I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, I'm out.